Welcome to the IT Fundamentals Training Series. This is your host, Mark Halpton. Today, episode 48 begins chapter 5. Chapter 5. Big time chapter 5. We crossed a line, ready to roll. Here we go. Welcome to episode 48. We begin chapter 5 of our ITF Fundamentals Training Series. This is your host, Mark Haupt, and today we're going to be talking about software applications. We're going to do the introduction to chapter 5, and then on our release on Wednesday, we are going to start really getting into software applications and how to deploy them, delivery methods. And I will admit, last week I said, look, we're going to try and show you things as much as we can, but the software application delivery piece of it, and this is going to be a lot of non-visual pieces, unfortunately. But we're going to give it a shot and see what we can do. We're going to show how to uninstall and install the software and so on and so forth. So let's just give an overview of what we're going to talk about during chapter 5 so you can be prepared. So first of all, we're going to explain the purpose and use of software. I think probably a lot of us already understand that because we deal with applications on our mobile devices, on our phones, and so on and so forth. But there are different kinds of software that you do need to become aware of and be prepared to answer the questions for inside the ITF Plus exam. So you understand that there is software out there, and that's what a lot of people understand. But did you know that there's productivity software? Now, productivity software are things like Microsoft Word and other word processing software, and I can go list a whole bunch of them. Another one might be Google Docs, for example, which is Google's equivalent to Microsoft Word, or even Notepad. For that example, that example could be a productivity software as well. Another type of software that's underneath that productivity software that we'll talk about are spreadsheets. And this is where a lot of numerical and number type of functions crunching. Your accountants are going to use that software more than a word processing software. Presentation software is done by people who are giving presentations, like what we're dealing with here with the ITF fundamentals. We're going to start seeing some of those presentations become available to you very shortly as we develop them out. Even a web browser could be a productivity software, although it could also cross into other types of software. And then a product called Visio from Microsoft is visual diagramming software, which could also be the CAD programs for engineering or other types of products. So those are all productivity software. Then there's collaboration software, and these are the types of functions like your email and conferencing like Zoom, like I'm recording this right now, instant messaging like Slack or Teams, and even the online workspaces like Microsoft's OneNote or perhaps even OneDrive, which are, by the way, two separate products, and Google Drive and different things along those lines. That's where you do the online workspaces and the document sharing, and those are all called collaboration software. You can start to see the difference between these. The productivity software was you're actually doing work in them. Collaboration software is when you're perhaps taking some of the productivity software, placing it in a location that allows you to interact and work with another person. So, for example, you could take Microsoft Word and place it up on SharePoint or OneDrive, share that file off to another individual, and both of you could be inside of that productivity software collaborating at the same time. So if I didn't just muddy the waters by bringing these two together, then hopefully you still understand it. But then there's another type of software. It's called business software. And so when we're talking about business software, things like Microsoft SQL, which is a database software, or perhaps even the old Microsoft Access database that you could deploy locally on your computer. Project management software. There's a ton of different kinds of project management software out there that allows you to take and plan out a project and show Gantt charts and different things. And we'll get into those types of software as well. In fact, you could take some of the productivity software like Microsoft Excel and turn it into a business software like the project management. But business-specific applications. So, for example, an ERM or a CRM, which is Enterprise Resource Management, or perhaps a Customer Resource Management tool. These are what we commonly call, in just simple terms, as ticketing systems, for example. Those are business-specific applications. Accounting software, where it's specifically for accounting, like QuickBooks or Quicken, those are also going to be discussed. As we move through this chapter, we're going to explain methods of applications, architecture, and delivery models. And this is where we get into how applications are made and how they are delivered to you. So we're going to talk about their delivery methods, about being locally installed on a computer, and the limitations that exist in that, where you don't have to have a network and it can operate, which is very, very good and very functional when you're on a laptop and you're sitting on an airplane or on a mountainside when you don't have access to the internet. But on the other hand, it's not so good whenever you want to collaborate with someone. So they've taken a lot of this software that could be locally installed and made it so it collaborates as well as does a local install. We're going to talk about local network hosted software. So that's where it's contained, if you will, inside a local area network, where the only people that can utilize it and deal with it are people that are inside of that secure local zone, if you will. Then we'll talk about the fun piece, is cloud-hosted software, or what we call software as a service, and how they've taken that SaaS, or software as a service model, and blown it all out into other things like DRaaS, what we call DRaaS, disaster recovery as a service, which is backup as a service. Or maybe they've taken different other types of tools and turned them in, like security product as a service. Different things along those lines. So we'll take a look at that. We will also look at application architecture models, which are 1, 2, 3 tier and in tier. And these are important as you deal with a lot of the cloud hosted products. And when you deal with things like I deal with in the data center, especially when we get down to the in tier or in minus tier type of scenario, which means redundancy, essentially. All right, then we'll move on to configuring and using web browsers. And you think you know everything you need to know because you grew up in the web browser world. Well, I'm not that old, and I've already learned a whole bunch of new things in here. But you know what? I'm going to still go through and I'm going to teach you the importance of clearing your cache, or the purpose of cache inside there, how to set the security settings for privacy and other client-side functions in a manner that will secure your browser, and these pop-up ads won't come up and you possibly won't get impacted by ransomware, things along that lines. And I'll be honest with you, during this section, we are probably going to go into a little bit more in depth for the browsers than what ITF needs. And the reason for that is I'm going to create a standalone deployment, if you will, or standalone video that's probably going to be longer than normal, so that we can use that not just for ITF Plus, but we can use that to draw more people into ITF Plus, and people can use it as an immediate fix or immediate function within a church or a business, small business type of environment. So we're looking to make some of these videos, in like that one, to be standalone. People can hop in and just take a look at that. So we're going to look at those, and we're going to look at browser add-on extensions and how to do incognito or private browsing, and what that means and why that is both good and bad, and how to deal with certificates, pop-up blockers, and script blockers. Again, that will be discussed during the security function. And like I said, when we're talking about this section 3.5 in the book, that will probably be close to a half an hour, 45-minute, or even larger video, just so it can be a standalone function. And probably my podcast producer is pulling his hair out right now and saying, no, it needs to be 15 minutes or less. But maybe we'll just make them 3 15-minute sessions that will deploy on the same day, or something along those lines. All right, section 3.6 is where we'll wrap it up. And we're going to compare and contrast general application concepts. And this is kind of where we wrap it up. And we talk a little bit about the legal aspect with licensing and some of the software installation best practices. In fact, what I think we're going to do is we're going to kind of flip things around a little bit as we go through this. We're going to talk about section 3.4 and 3.6 in one session and then another, and then we'll come back and do 3.5, because really 3.4 and 3.6 are designed and need to be together, because there's really not a licensing function. Yes, there's an end user licensing agreement, whatnot, on browsers, but there's not a true licensing function that occurs within the browsers. And our focus of 3.5 will be configuring the browsers to be more security conscious and privacy conscious. So we'll take a look at the licensing and what those different licenses mean. We'll probably even take a look at a master service agreement or an end user license agreement right on the screen. So be prepared to sit down and look at that. And then we'll also look at how to install that software and what some of the best practices are, perhaps even installing some software or deinstalling some software if the case will permit. All right, so this is chapter 5, episode 48 of the ITF Plus scenario. I'm hoping that we can get through chapter 5 in the next 2 weeks. And if you're wondering, yes, we are way late on this because I stayed off the grid for a couple of weeks there in September. We discussed that when I came back. But to be quite honest with you, I think we're going to really push through chapter 6, which is about software development, very, very quickly because of the groundwork we're laying on chapter 5. And then when we get to chapter 7, again, I'm probably only going to highlight the things that you must know for the ITF Plus on database fundamentals, because a lot of ITF Plus people, when you get that certification, you really should be focusing on database functions above and beyond just what is the basic function, probably in your A+ certification or further down the line. And then we'll probably slow down a little bit on networking concepts, because that is important to being able to manage and maintain a computer. And then security concepts and threats. And again, we've been salting this entire thing with security because that's what I do. And I know eventually we're going to get to Security Plus. So believe it or not, we're probably just going to fly through security, because I know that's going to be a focus at a later point. And then chapter 10 is more security. So I'm going to give you what you need to know in order to do that. And then chapter 11 is actually security as well. It's called business continuity and computer support. So that will wrap it up. My goal is to be done with ITF Plus at the end of October. That will put us at 1 month late. That's okay, as long as you're learning. But we will get through this, and we will work together to work towards your certification if that's what you're trying to do, or move on to our friendly A+ certification, where we'll go deeper on a lot of these concepts. But anyway, chapter 5, episode 48 is in the books. I will talk to you later. Adios.